Let's start with our initial script. In this line, I import the pandas, SPD, and Plotly Express. So Plotly Express is a very simple interface how to plot in just 2-3 commands something. You can even access the command lines if you use this hyphenation in front. At which path am I located just right now? And you see already that I'm here in the data analytics in the Our World in Data clean indicators. You can always access the operating system directly via the OS commands, via the OS libraries. So for example, if you want to know in which path you are, then you can also get the access directly via the library operating system. You should try to place most of your work in a standalone script in one notebook. Let's ensure that we are always in this path. In this part here, it's already a complicated expression. So it says, okay, I want to go into this path. So I want to go one folder down, I want to go this folder up, and then I want to be in this directory. So I try if I can go into this path, and if it's not working, I will display that it did not work. So in this case, I could not change into this path because I'm already in this path and the current path is. This command here I use very often right at the beginning of any script, just to ensure that I'm in the correct path, and it's a standard procedure to check it. And then I have a look on which files are in this folder where I'm just right now located, and now we are back in the kind of representation which files are in this path. And what you can see here in this bracket, you will get a so-called array. Now, once we have understood which files we have here in, we can start to read out one of these files, one of the CSVs, and push it to a so-called data frame. The data frame itself and reading a CSV is very, very simple. So let's start to do this command here. We have imported the pandas library and we read the CSV. We have here put the name, and typically you have something like a separator here on top. If it would be semicolon, it would be something like this, or if it's going into, if you're using a wrong separator, you will see that the import will not work, because then it cannot separate the individual rows. We push now the data frame itself into a object, the data frame object, which is here called dfdata, and we can have a look on the data set itself by displaying the top rows or the last rows with a tail, or just visualize bringing the standard interface to it. So we have 7,108 rows, 4 columns with the entity, which means the country, the code, the year, and the GDP per capita. And here we see that the calculation or the number representation is now correct. We can access column names by the command .columns, and we can access each of the columns by just the name convention. And what we would like to do now is to plot one country, and to do this we have to slice out one country. The country code is as seen here in the column code, and we can slice out an individual country like the USA by a binary vector, false, false, true. So whenever we find the USA, it will come true. A lot of false because all countries of the world are in this array. And if we then index out each of these rows where USA is appearing, we have the correct format. Very simple slicing of information. So we slice it out into new data frame, and we can use directly the plot command on top. For the plot command itself, either if you would plot now everything, pandas would try to plot every column where they can find a numeric data. So the year column and the GDP per capita. That's the reason why you should access directly the column you would like to plot. Still, the index itself, how to plot it, it's not correct because it's trying to plot via the so-called index. And the index you can see here. The index is 6830 and so on. It's the original row index. But you would like to have the years here. And the trick is then to bring year towards the index. How does the data frame now look like? Let's have a look at the data frame. And you can see that the year was pushed towards the index here. You can see it as well here in this gap. These are the columns. And this is now the index here. And if you plot now, the index appears as well in the X scale. And this is how you should plot via pandas data frames, that you always take care that the index is at the correct position and you really name the column which you would like to plot. If you want to visualize multiple countries, because normally if you do an analysis on sustainable development goals, you should not only plot one individual country, either you should compare different countries or you should compare different measures within a country. To slice out different countries into a data frame, I've done here. So I generated a country list with DOI is Germany, Great Britain, US, India, Israel, and so on. And I mask out is in C list, is a masking out of this C list. It's a very convenient command that you can compare directly, not step by step each individual country, but in one shot an entire list of countries or list of values, and you will get back a Boolean vector here, which is masking out then our data frame. And if you go through this command here, we will have directly the entity code here and everything in one shot. This is a very convenient command. Visualizing now different countries in one graph, you should not go with pandas anymore because it's getting now in a kind of dynamic mode. And dynamic mode means you want to maybe click on one country to visualize it or declick it. You would like to have an hover, and hover means if you go over the graph, you would like the index. And this is the place where you have to search for the correct library to visualize something. And this is where also Plotly comes in. And look at this 3 lines of code, which is really, really simple. We are using the Plotly Express. Let's say we want to plot it at lines. We push in the data frame. We tell Plotly what is our X column. It's a year. And we say, okay, our Y color is a GDP. And the very interesting thing is we can now decompose each country by a new identifier, this code identifier, where we say, okay, for each different code, give us a different color, and then show the graph. And now look at the graph, what happens. This is now the result. It's called then batteries included. That means there's a lot of functionality already there. So you can hover over it for each individual graph. You can even click on individual countries to get rid of them. And here you can see the power of using the correct library. If you go directly with the correct libraries, you get all this kind of functionalities in one shot. And especially as a data scientist, you would like to communicate this kind of things, and you need as well a method how to maybe send this information and this graph towards your peers, your friends. You open it. You have it now in one HTML. I just opened it. You can zoom into it. You can zoom out. You can send this file to other people. You can display and highlight different lines. And this concludes the first step of the time series visualization. What did we learn? Number one, it's really important to understand the correct libraries. It is really important to use more or less the most convenient way to represent something. Sometimes it needs more time in Python to search for the correct libraries than for programming it. Most of the time you can just go to the documentation page. Sometimes you just have to go to the correct documentation page. You copy out the code you would like to use. You play around with the code to see if everything works fine. And then you understand the concept in the background. And here you can see it, what we did. In fact, we just got some data. We pushed in the line X, X, Y, and the title itself. And this is exactly what we did. Starting from the clear documentation of Plotly towards a way more complicated data frame. So the trick is always prepare your data frame as good as possible. This is called data piping, data manipulation. So you have to rigorously understand the data structure you have to be in, and then use the correct library to plot it, and you're all fine. And we did our first visualization. And you're very close to the first part of our graphics we have in our world of data. Yes, it's even nicer here, but we have now a very good starting point for further exploration. The next step is to do as well this graphical map visualization, which I will show in the next section.